brioche. Are you ready for clue 3 of the surprise sock along? We're gonna do a gusset this week and maybe some cables. What tools do we need, brioche? We're gonna need a cable needle, right? We're gonna need a cable needle that's a similar circumference as your working needle, or you could use a DPN. Even a tapestry needle could be used as a cable needle. Get creative. We're going to do a little cable technique, and you're going to need some stitch markers. If you're working with double-pointed needles, then I recommend getting 3 split ring markers that can lock onto your fabric. And if you're working with magic loop technique or anything else, then you could just get like 1 split ring marker and 2 just fixed stitch markers. Get a few stitch markers, and we're going to learn some gusset shaping to blast this sock into a new direction as we venture into the foot. So as you follow this technique tutorial, the most important thing is to have your pattern open or printed out, because I'm going to be showing size 3 for the tutorial, but the stitch counts are different for each size. And there's even a different set of instructions for sizes 2 and 4 that are a little different from sizes 1, 3, and 5 because of the stitch counts. So pay real close attention to your round by round instructions. There's a lot going on in the beginning as we pick up stitches. There'll be some cables happening. So take it round by round and be in the moment as you knit this sock. Don't freak out and think too far ahead, because that's my job, is to guide you to the next section. So we're gonna have a lot of fun. And lastly, if you're knitting 2 socks at a time, if you're doing your right sock and your left sock, make sure you have your right sock in your hand while you're following the right sock instructions. And if you've knitted if you've started the left sock simultaneously, make sure you're holding the left sock in your hands, following the left sock instructions, so that what you've done flows into the new instructions. And again, there's 2 sets of instructions this week for the right sock and the left sock if you want to venture into those symmetrical instructions. But again, if this is your first sock, take it easy on yourself. Just knit 1 sock at a time, and then your second sock, just follow the same right sock instructions. You'll have 2 right socks. They're going to look amazing. So that's it. Let's get to it. These fun techniques, and you can skip ahead at any time. If something's easy for you, there's timestamps down below. Skip ahead. What's he doing for that cable? Wait, I know how to do that, but how does he pick up stitches? Oh, okay. My mind is blown. Let's blast with these contrast blast socks. Let's work the gusset of our contrast blast socks. We're going to begin by working with our heel stitches. Make sure you have the right stitch count at the end of your heel turn. Using the main color, I'm going to be showing you for size 3, but look at the pattern closely. The pattern is divided for sizes 1, 3, and 5, work with 1 set of instructions. But if you're working size 2 or size 4, you need to scroll down in your pattern to follow size 2 and 4 of the instructions. So what I'm going to show, I think, is most beneficial for all sock sizes is the pickup. We're going to pick up stitches. We're going to work some gusset decreases. But exactly where I slip stitches here at the top of the foot might be different depending on your size, okay? So while I'm showing you this video, feel free to skip ahead with the timestamps linked down below to the most important techniques that are going to help you. But again, I'm showing size 3, but it might not be exactly what you're doing if you're following another size. But the fundamental techniques will be the same. So pay attention to the pickup, and let's just get going with size 3. But make sure your pattern is open, so you're following your own pattern with your own sizes and your own stitch counts as we knit these instructions. Round 1, right side. We're going to use main color. I'm going to knit 12 stitches from my heel, but look at your pattern and see how many stitches do you need for your heel. We're basically knitting about half of the stitches of the heel. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So this is the halfway point of the heel. If you want to place a stitch marker in the fabric, this is going to mark the beginning of the round. I'm just going to place it in the fabric here. Yeah, my needles are going to divide that as well. So if you're working with DPNs, then stop with 1 DPN, and it's just going to stay right there, and use a new DPN to work the other half of the stitches. If you're working with circular needles or magic loop, this is where your loop is going to be. This is the new beginning of the round at the bottom center of the foot. So again, if you're working with circular needles, pull your needle through to get that little loop happening right here. So I placed marker to mark the new beginning of the round at the center of the heel. Now I'm going to knit 12, the other half of the stitches. This is going to be a different stitch count for each size. Once you have all of your heel stitches knitted, pick up and knit 25 stitches along the left edge of the slip stitch heel flap. That's for size 3, but look at your pattern. How many stitches do you need to pick up along that selvage? It might be 17 or 33 or another number. Use the same needle, okay? So this is my heel needle for the other half of the heel stitches. I'm going to use the same needle, and the first stitch I'm going to get is this main color, selvage. And then get the next contrast color selvage. This is number 2. Number 3 is the next main color. Go into both legs of that selvage stitch to pick it up and knit it. If you hold the yarn in your right hand, dive into both legs of that selvage stitch, wrap the yarn around, and pull it through. Whenever I wrap the yarn around and pull it through these picked up stitches, I pull this yarn pretty tight so that I have a nice tension for my needle tip. Ooh, ooh. No, wasn't enough tension. So yeah, have enough tension so that when the needle tip comes through, it can grab onto that yarn. The yarn comes around, whoop, bring it on through. Keep on going until you have the recommended number of stitches picked up and knitted along this selvage from here to here. I am picking up and knitting the 25th stitch for size 3. That final stitch you pick up should be a main color stitch, but it doesn't matter as long as you have the recommended number of stitches picked up. And if you're missing one, you could just grab any strand of yarn and knit through it if you need to get your recommended stitch number there. So do whatever you need to get that recommended stitch count, and that needle is complete. Place marker. If you're working with circular needles or magic loop method, you can place a marker on your right needle. I'm working with DPNs, and this is going to be the gap between my needles, so this marker is just going to fall off. So I'm not going to place a marker, and I'm just going to call this gap. This is going to be the marker that marks our decrease location. If you want to place a marker in the fabric for you DPN knitters, then that's okay. So I'll do that for now, just if you DPN knitters want a marker to mark that corner. Use a new needle for you DPN knitters, or if you're doing the magic loop method, then you can just keep on knitting and your other magic loop will be at this halfway point from these slip stitches. So for you magic loop knitters, you'll have a loop at the beginning of the round here, and your other loop will be at the halfway point here for the magic loop method. But for DPN knitters, our needles will be needle 1, needle 2, needle 3, and needle 4. We're going to pick up stitches later and have all of these stitches picked up with the rest of the heel stitches on needle 4. Okay, let's keep going. As we work across these slip stitches, this is the part where you need to follow your pattern really closely because it's different depending on your chosen size. I also made a little boo-boo right here. These 2 stitches are slipped. These 2 stitches should have been bumpy like this, but it's okay. I'm just going to keep going. These first 2 stitches, after you place your marker, they should, for sizes 1, 3, and 5, they should be reverse stockinette like that. But oopsies, no going back, just go forward in life. I need to slip 2 with yarn in back and knit 10 for sizes 1, 3, and 5. But follow your pattern closely, okay? These are going to be slip stitches, but make sure you follow exactly what the pattern says. I need to do this 3 times for my size, but follow your pattern during this section, the slip stitches. So I just slip 2, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and then slip 2. So whenever you slip 2 stitches, no matter what size you're knitting, it should be 2 stitches next to the previous 2 stitches that were slipped. So I slipped those 2, and now I need to knit 10 again. I'm at the halfway point of my slip stitches, so pull your magic loop through if you're doing a magic loop technique, or this is where you change to a new DPN. So this section is going to be really similar, just like our stair-step slip stitches from the leg. We're basically going to do that again in combination with some decreases coming up soon. So slip 2 with yarn and back, knit 10, follow your pattern closely. All right, at the end of size 3, size 1, 3, and 5, I need to knit 4. But for sizes 2 and 4, look at the pattern to see what you have to do at the end of this line of instruction. Okay, we finished those slip stitches. Place marker. You could place a marker in the fabric for you DPN knitters, or place a marker on your right needle for you magic loop knitters. Pick up and knit stitches along the right edge of the slip stitch heel flap. So this is the right edge of that slip stitch heel flap using a new needle. And the first one I'm going to go into this main color stitch way down here. And then the contrast color selvage will be my second picked up and knitted stitch. I need to get 25 stitches for size 3. But look at your pattern to make sure you're picking up the right number of stitches. As you pick up stitches along the selvage, make sure you don't go into the same hole twice. So you always want to see a little strand of yarn between your picked up stitches. So I just went into this hole. Don't go into that hole again. You want to go across a little bit. Sometimes it might feel a little bit hard to see, so you could always wiggle your stitches and loosen them up a little bit. And if you only get one strand of yarn, that's okay. If you're finding it hard to pick up stitches, it's okay if you just go through one strand, but I'm trying to get both legs of each selvage stitch. That will make it nice and tidy, but basically just get that recommended stitch count, whatever you have to do. If you have to do some fancy little maneuvering or make it up on your own, just feel free to go into any strands of yarn, but this is the guideline. After you finish picking up and knitting your selvage stitches from the heel flap, knit these remaining heel stitches. This is the knit 12 instruction for size 3. But make sure you're following your pattern and knitting the correct number of stitches. You're basically knitting the first half of your heel stitches again, and then you're done. You should have 116 stitches for size 3, or look at your pattern and make sure you have the recommended stitch count at the end of all of those round 1 instructions. You should be at this beginning of round marker at the center of your heel. That was one of the trickiest parts of the pattern, and it's going to get easier as we set up our rows and start to visualize what's going on with our gusset. Let's work round 2. Knit to 6 stitches before the marker. So we're going to knit until we're 6 stitches before that marker over there. That marks our gusset decreases. I'm going to show you the decrease techniques of this section. Again, feel free to skip ahead with the timestamps linked down below to any part of this gusset and follow along with what helps you. But the most important thing for this section is to follow your pattern really closely, round by round, depending on your size, because it's a little different with those slip stitches depending on what size you're following. But all of the techniques I'm going to show occur in all sizes, so you're going to learn how to do a fun cable and some decreases. Those are the most important parts of this tutorial. All right, how many stitches? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Knit until you reach 6 stitches before that marker. Knit 2 together. Knit 2 stitches together, and then knit 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So that's our decrease. Our first decrease is the knit 2 together and then knit 4. Slip the marker. If you're working with magic loop technique, then slip that marker on your right needle. If you have DPNs, just ignore the slip marker instruction, and you could just keep your marker into the fabric to know that, oh, when I'm reaching that marker, this is where I do a decrease. Let me look at my pattern closely to make sure I'm reaching that marker correctly. Keep on following the instructions, and I'll meet you back up later after this marker to show you the slip, slip, knit. I'm at the location in round 2 where it says to slip marker, that second slip marker. With DPNs, just ignore that. If you have your magic loop, then slip the marker onto your right needle. Knit 4, 2, 3, 4, and slip, slip, knit. Slip one knitwise, slip another one knitwise, knit those two together through the back loop. Knit to end of round, all the way to the center of the heel over there, the end of the round. So keep on following the instructions. Rows 3 and 4 you'll follow. Row 4 will be another decrease round, so it's really important to follow the pattern closely and visualize your marker placement. You're always going to do a knit 2 together. When you're 6 stitches before the marker, you're always going to do a knit 2 together, and then you have 4 stitches before the marker. And the other decrease happens after the marker. So here's your other marker on this side. You'll do the marker, you'll slip it, or just ignore it and know that the marker's there. And then you'll work 4 stitches, and then the slip, slip, knit will be with stitch number 5 and number 6. And then you'll knit to the end of the round. So we'll be getting some stockinette stitch for this gusset, and we'll do a cable technique later on in one of the next rows. So keep on following your rounds, and I will show you what it looks like, and then we'll do some more techniques. Keep on going, you can do it. I just finished round 4 with main color, and it's important to know that we're going to work 4 rounds of each color, just like we did for these leg sections, and we're doing the stockinette stitch with these slip stitches on the top of the foot. So I just finished round 4. Grab your contrast color for round 5, knit to 4 stitches before marker with your contrast color. Just start knitting and leave a tail. We can weave that in later. Knit to 4 stitches before marker. When you reach 4 stitches before that stitch marker, you can slip those 4 stitches with yarn in back. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then continue to work round 5. You can slip that stitch marker onto your needle for magic loop knitters, or just keep that needle in place. This is the slip marker. The marker is still right there. So for round 5, we're going to slip different stitches. So for size 3, I need to knit 2 and then slip 2. But follow your pattern closely for your size. Where do you need to slip stitches, and which ones do you need to knit? Work all of these top foot stitches. These will become the top foot stitches. These will keep on doing that stair step slip stitch pattern. I just finished knitting and slipping my stitches with the contrast color, and on the right sock instructions, it's always the next 2. So those 2 stitches to the left of those previous slip stitches. So those were the stitches I slipped with my main color, so I slipped the next 2. When you reach that second slip marker, this is the marker right here, and then slip 4 stitches with yarn in back. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm using a new needle for the DPN knitters, or with you magic loop knitters, just slip those 4 with yarn in back, knit to end of round. So those are all the techniques for these first rounds. Keep on following rounds 6, 7, and 8 with your contrast color. You're going to work 4 rounds total with your contrast color, and pay close attention to your knits and purls. We're going to do stockinette stitch on the bottom of the foot and these gusset stitches here, but on these stitches here, make sure you're doing the slip stitches. So we'll be knitting and slipping on this stitch pattern. And on rounds 6 and 8, those are decrease rounds. So make sure that you're doing your decrease on rounds 6 and 8. We're always going to slip these 4 stitches with the contrast color in the gusset. And here's the other 4 stitches. Remember at the beginning we also slipped 4 stitches? We're always going to slip 4 with yarn and back with the contrast color. So make sure you do that. It might feel a little bit tight, but don't worry, it'll all even out in the end. So keep on following rows 5, 6, 7, and 8. One more tip I want to show you is to knit jogless stripes. This is a technique you can do whenever you work the second round of a new color. So I worked 1 round with my contrast color, and when you work the second round of a stripe, to knit a jogless stripe, on that first stitch, do you see that main color stitch? You can lift this main color stitch right here, this strand of yarn, lift it onto the left needle and knit it together with your first stitch. This will make a jogless stripe so you don't get a little jagged transition between your stripes at the bottom of your foot. If your brain is already buzzing with all these techniques in the gusset, just ignore what I just showed you and just knit, okay? Just knit. But this happens on the second row of each color. So the second row of your contrast color, second row of your main color. For the whole gusset and foot section, you could do that to knit a jogless stripe. That's a bonus technique for those of you that just want that extra coutoured finish to your sock. But if that's too much information for you to handle, then just ignore it. And round 6, you're knitting to the last 6 stitches, or knitting to 6 stitches before the marker. And we're going to do decreases during round 6. So I'll just show you that. Knit 2 together to 6 stitches before the marker. Almost there. There we go. I've got my 4 slip stitches and then those 2. That's 6 stitches before my marker. So I'm going to knit 2 together and then slip 4 with yarn and back. Keep on following rows 6, 7, 8, and 9 and do that little jogless stripe technique that I just showed you anytime you're working the second round of a stripe. I just finished round 8 with my contrast color. Keep both yarns attached and we'll carry those along the inside of the sock as we stripe colors. And this is what it looks like. We've got stockinette stitch. We're decreasing every other row in 2 locations, before the marker and after that other marker. And we have our slip stitches echoing that same stair-step slip stitch pattern from earlier. Round 9 using main color. We're going to do a cable technique with those slip stitches, a really fun slip stitch cable. So using main color, just carry the yarn loosely along the inside of the sock. You don't really have to think about it. It just carries along the inside. Round 9, using main color, knit to 4 stitches before the marker. Once you reach 4 stitches before the marker, they should be those slipped stitches. You need a cable needle. I have an extra DPN, so I'm just going to use that. So you can use any tool you need to cable 4 back. Place the first 2 stitches onto a cable needle and hold those in the back of the work. And then knit those last 2 stitches. These are the 2 stitches right before the marker. Knit 2. And then knit 2 from the cable needle, or whatever tool you're using. And that's the cable 4 back. 2 stitches travel to the back, and you cable them. Make a little cable cross. It's going to feel tight, okay, because we're slipping so many stitches and twisting them for that cable. It's going to feel really tight, but don't worry about it. When I blocked my finished socks, it evened out and made a nice little tight gusset highlight cable detail there, but I didn't have any puckering that happened in my finished sock. So when we wash and block our finished socks, it should all be nice and even. But as you knit it, it might feel a little bit tight. But don't worry. Keep on going for round 9. I just finished slipping and knitting my stitches on the top of the foot here. And slip marker, I'm just going to leave my marker in the fabric. If you want to move it up so it's a little bit more noticeable, you could reposition that marker for you DPN knitters, or slip that marker onto your right needle for magic loop. Okay, slip the marker, it's right there. Okay, got it. Let's do another cable for back. It's with those slip stitches, so using your cable needle, slip the first 2 stitches and hold them to the back. And then I want my yarn in front of that cable needle because we're going to knit stitch number 3 and 4, those last 2 stitches. So knit those 2 from your left needle and then knit the 2 from your cable needle, like this. It might feel a little bit tight, so I like to have my stitches close to my needle tips. And that's the cable 4 back, the same technique as we did by the other gusset decrease location. So that's the cable 4 back. Those are all of the techniques that you need to knit the gusset. The most important thing now I can recommend is to follow your pattern closely. Take it row by row and it gets easier. We've done the hardest things in the sock, so now it's just going to get easier and easier. And if you make a little boo-boo, like if you forget to decrease, just sneak in a decrease later. If you do 2 decrease rounds right in a row, that's okay. But you should decrease every other round. So rounds 10 and 12 should be decrease rounds. But follow your rounds closely, and you can always sneak in an extra decrease later if you missed 1 or 2. So don't worry about that. Just get back on track. And if you love that jogless technique that I showed earlier, it happens on the 2nd round of each stripe. So I'm on the 2nd round of my main color. So I'm going to do that jogless technique where I lift the other color from below and knit it together with my first stitch. And that's going to make these beautiful, invisible, seamless stripes on the bottom of your foot. I just love sock knitting because it's all about making these custom details and making really special, unique little hugs for your feet. So keep on going with the gusset instructions, and I'll meet you at the end of the gusset, and we can see what our stitch counts are looking like and what the shaping is looking like. But this is what we have so far. Lots of stockinette stitch at the beginning of the round. Our decrease worked every other round. We'll be slipping stitches with the contrast color. We're doing a cable on the first round of the main color. Lots going on, so take it stitch by stitch, round by round, and I promise it's much easier when you focus in the moment and don't worry too much about what's coming ahead. Beautiful details. This is what the finished Clue 3 sock looks like. So I just finished the gusset of my contrast blast socks, and these are the right socks. So once you finish your gusset with that really fun cable and those slip stitches coming in again, then you can knit the 2nd sock using the left sock instructions if you've been doing that, or if you've been knitting 2 right socks. This is what I recommend. If this is your first sock you've knit or you're newer to socks, just knit 2 right socks and it's going to look just like this. That cable is going to feel a little bit tight, but don't worry, because when I blocked out my socks, it stretches out and just gives a nice crisp detail to your gusset. So the contrast blast socks are looking really fun now with that cable. The hardest parts are behind us. We did a lot of picking up stitches. There was a cable and shaping and slip stitches. We've been doing so many techniques in this sock. We're going to calm it down, don't worry. So I think the hardest part is behind us. And what else do we need? I think we need a foot and a little toe. So we've got one more week of clues, one more section to go, and then we'll have some socks. So it's starting to look like a sock already, so I'm really excited to see where this is going to go. So if you've cast on and you're working on your sock, you can share all your progress on Instagram with Sockalong, West Knits Sockalong 2023, or SSAL 2023, and on Ravelry. Share your progress in the Ravelry group. So I can't wait to see what your colors are doing, and I hope you're keeping up if you're trying to keep up. If not, don't worry. Embrace your own pace. If you're still even working on the cuff, just keep on knitting, and now you can see where the sock is going, and hopefully that gives you a bit of motivation to keep on knitting. So I'll see you in the final week of clues, and we'll see where this contrast blast adventure takes us.